So, that said, there are some things you need to be aware of that good agents, quote unquote, still do that may not work for you. Okay? So you can be aware. So I'm going to erase this. You guys are all aware of these sort of things. These ones are not scams, but these are things that are complaints that authors have about agents, that about legitimate agents. One is the eternal rewrite. Agents, particularly these days, will often ask for revisions on a book you send them, and they won't agree to represent you unless you do the rewrite. Some authors have therefore found themselves in a sort of eternal state where they've sent the same book to like an agent 5 times, and the agent always requests a rewrite and never agrees to represent them. That's kind of dangerous. It happens a lot. You've got to be aware of it. I'm not sure if I can speak to whether you want to just drop that agent or not, but you do want to be aware of how much time am I willing to revise to this person's editorial demand when they can't actually give me any money for it, even if they pick me up. Okay? You can find posts of people discussing the virtues, and the pros and cons of this. The argument for is, well, they know editorially, they have a good eye, and if you're not there yet, they'll tell you. The argument against is, they can't give you money for it. An editor may like it just as it is, and they are too worried about ruining their reputation by sending something out that doesn't immediately sell. And so they keep asking for these rewrites that don't cost them anything and force you to keep doing this.
Do agents ever say, no, I'm just not taking this?
Yeah, most of the time they will.
So in that case, if they request for a rewrite, that means that at least you're in the ballpark.
Usually that's a very good sign.
Okay.
Getting a request from a rewrite, I would say there is no problem with the agent saying, I like this book, I think it has this flaw and this flaw and this flaw. If you look at that and say, they're right, I bet changing that would make it a better book, and you try it and it does, that has been a wonderful thing. That's what you want to have happening. It sort of started happening to me right before I sold. If you send it back and they still want revisions, and then you do them and you send it back and they still want revisions, this is where we get into questions of, is this still a good sign or not? Some authors online would say, never rewrite to an agent's editorial demands, period. They can't give you money. They are not an editor. Their job is to sell the book, not tell you how to revise the book. Others will say, a good agent has a good editorial eye, and this will help you sell the book. You have to make this decision by yourself. I would not pin all of your hopes on an agent who has asked for a rewrite. If you agree with them, go ahead and do the revision, but do be sending your book other places as well, okay? Just be aware. This happens even after you've picked up the agent. I have a friend who published a couple of books and sent the next book to the agent, and the agent's like, I think it needs to be more like this. It's a very high-powered, important agent. It's kind of hard to say, no, go ahead and send it out anyway. So they did a revision, and they got it back, and the agent's like, it's still not there. We need to work on this longer. Meanwhile, the author's like, I need to eat. Send it out, and you're going to have to decide where you kind of fit on that sort of thing. Some agents just won't send it out. Others will say, I don't think this is ready yet. If you want to send it out, we will, but I think you should fix this and this and this. I would much rather be with the second agent, even if I agree with changing what they say. But some of the very big, high-powered agents, if it's my way or the highway sort of thing. All right? So keep that in mind. The other argument about agents is there's the argument that some authors feel that the agents are not incentivized to go bigger. For instance, for the agent, taking the extra time to negotiate a contract up from $10,000 to $15,000 is probably not worth their time. That $5,000, 15% of that's several $100 on a deal that they're probably not making that much money off of anyway, when they've got all these other big authors that are making them a lot of money. The argument against this is that they would want to just grab you in case you get big, and they would say the 10K is enough, and they won't fight tooth and nail for that last bit of money that to you means the difference between keeping your day job and quitting your day job. So there is the argument that no, they're not always going to look out for your best interest. It's better for them to sell 5 books at $10,000 than it is to sell 1 book at $50,000, because those 5 $10,000 books all have a chance of going super big, and the money difference between those for them is not super huge. So be aware of this argument. If you do go with an agent, the way to mitigate this, like we said, is to know the business. Keep track of your agent. Ask them, where are you sending my book? To whom are you sending it? And I want to see the rejection letters. Demand the rejection letters. Every agent should be willing to send them to you. You get to see the rejections. Then you know exactly who the agent is sending it to and what their response was. Okay? That's a way to make sure, and when they get an offer, go and kind of see, say, we should push on this. Why haven't we, I want you to go, be, one of the big arguments about authors with agents is that the author kind of, since they don't want to do this sort of stuff, just hands it all off to the agent and then doesn't even pay any attention to what the agent's doing. It's a bad place to be. You want to keep in mind that an agent is not your manager. They work for you. And though they're not an employee, you are their client, and you should be keeping tabs on them just so that you're up to date on what's happening. I'm not terribly good at this all the time. I really trust Joshua. I've been with him for, 10 plus years now. He's really good at his job. I'll often just say, yeah, go take care of this. He'll tell me, no, you need to read this contract, Brandon. You can't just say take care of it. So he tries to make me do this more, and things like that. And a really good agent will kind of be aware of that and say, here are your rejections. Here's what's happening with your career that I see. Do you want some advice? Take it. If you want, don't take it if you don't want to. The agent is there to give advice, not to manage your career, okay? Kind of underline that one. They are an advisor, not a manager. And if you kind of keep these things in mind, you can mitigate some of this stuff. Getting a very good agent is usually about the same thing as getting published. Meaning the good agents have a track record that I'd say is around an 80 to 90% sell rate on projects they pick up. They don't pick something up unless they think they can sell it. So getting one of the really good agents is a great step. That said, you can do this on your own. This is the traditional publishing week, by the way. We're not talking self-publishing. You can break in on your own. I did not have an agent when I got the offer for Elantris. That is very common in science fiction fantasy. It is less common in children's. The reason for this being that most of the science fiction and fantasy houses are regarded in publishing as these weird things. They produce these books for those weird people that we don't quite get. And so because of that, the science fiction fantasy houses tend to run very autonomously within the larger umbrella of a publishing division, and they tend to make a lot less money than the other divisions. So the big divisions just kind of leave them alone, and they do their own quirky things.